pictures there. Riot police firing tear gas, rubber bullets as well to disperse thousands of protesters. At least 100 people were injured and more than 120 demonstrators were arrested. Shasta Darlington is now live from Sao Paulo with an update. What are these protests about, Shasta?
Well, Hala, on the surface, it may not sound like that big a deal. They're protesting a hike in bus fares. It was only a 7% hike. It only brings the price to around $1.55. But this is, in fact, a big deal for a lot of people. And it's also a way to really protest the poor infrastructure here, poor public transportation. And so what we saw last night when we went to this protest at around 5 p.m., it was still very peaceful. Thousands of people were gathering in downtown Sao Paulo. But when they hit the streets, that's when it got ugly. And that's because there were many police waiting for them. In fact, it was the first time this week that authorities sent in riot police to greet them, shall we say. And as soon as they started marching down those streets, they used the tools at hand, rubber bullets, tear gas, and they were doing anything in their power to keep these marchers from getting to the main avenues and cutting off traffic. This is, after all, a city of 20 million people, and traffic is already as bad as it is. Now, according to protesters, these rubber bullets and the tear gas were shot without any warning. They were not told to stop. I can say that from where our team was standing, we couldn't hear any orders either. At the same time, the protesters weren't angels. They were throwing rocks. They were spraying graffiti. At the end of the evening, as you said, there were many injured and many arrests. It was just a very ugly night, Hala.
And as always, whenever there's anything that happens in Brazil, you know, that might lead to sort of the observation that things aren't very stable and that there might be trouble with the World Cup and other big events. Are questions being asked?
Absolutely, Hala, and it's partly because right now that's a very good question to ask. We are exactly 1 year out from the World Cup, and Sao Paulo is the city where the first game will be held. So you can imagine something like this happening on the eve of a game. People wouldn't get there. So it is an important question to ask. It highlights the fragility of the public transportation in Brazil, and I must say the anger of people right now over inflation, over growing economic problems. And we should also mention that starting tomorrow, the Confederations Cup starts. That's the warm-up event for the World Cup. It won't be held in Sao Paulo, but it will be held in other cities like Rio de Janeiro, where we've also seen protests. This is not the image you want to be shining around the globe with all of these big events coming up, Hala.
Well, when protests over a small thing are an expression of perhaps wider concerns and frustrations, where have we seen that before in the news? I don't know. I think we've talked about that in another country. Thanks very much. Shasta Darlington is live in Sao Paulo. You're at the International